6 p.m. in the Municipal and Safety Building in the Commission Chambers. And with the meeting called to order, I'll invite for our invocation the Reverend Jodie Ihfe from First United Methodist to lead us in our invocation. If everyone will please stand.
Let us pray. God of grace and mercy, we give you thanks for our city leaders. We are thankful that you have called them to dedicate their lives to serving this community and those who live here. We lift them up to you in the same empowering words that you spoke to your servant Joshua. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And so, Lord, we ask that you would give them strength during long days and sleepless nights working for this city, during difficult times and with difficult people, to focus on the job when personal concerns weigh heavy, to keep going when it feels like no one cares or no one supports them. And Lord, give them courage to get up every day and do the work that is required, to make the difficult but necessary decisions for the welfare of the citizens, to ask for help when overwhelmed, overburdened, or overworked, to hope for the best in people, but to prepare for the worst possibilities. Forgive us, Lord, for asking so much of them and offering so little to them. Forgive us, Lord, for forgetting that these are real people behind their titles. Forgive us, Lord, for expecting them and all leaders to please everyone all the time at any cost. Lord, we are thankful that you hear our confession and offer us forgiveness and grace. May we offer that same forgiveness and grace to one another. Be with all who are gathered here throughout this city and all around the world. Bring healing and hope, justice and peace, renewal and redemption in our lives and in all of creation. Surround those who are gathered here with your holy presence, filling them with strength and courage, and reminding all of us that you, our God, will be with us wherever we go. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit we pray. Amen.
If you'll remain standing and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Stahl?
Thank you, Mayor. You're probably going to have a problem hearing some of us tonight. We have a sound system difficulties we're trying to work through, so please bear with us, and we'll try to project a little bit better, at least in my case, than we normally do. So thank you for your bearing with us on that. But Mayor, we have a few items on this agenda that require adding 2 items and also moving 1 item that's currently listed under other, which I'll deal with first. We have approval of a resolution adjusting solid waste, municipal, and regional residential collection rates, which is under other, and we're recommending that we move that before ordinances, even though that'd be sort of placed in there, probably either before the consent agenda would be appropriate, and we could, if you could move that item from other to just prior to the consent agenda, because it needs to be considered before the reading of the ordinance.
So first change is to move 10.6 to before section 7 of the agenda.
Yes, sir.
And the next 2 changes?
Next 2 changes will be, we're going to add a beer license application for Burger and Barrel. That would be added under licenses and be considered as item number 5.2.
Okay. And the last change?
The last change, we are adding something that's not on the agenda either. This is adding a approval to renew the city's stop-loss insurance coverage. This would be, I would recommend this be added to the, as the first item or under the consent agenda. Gives you the opportunity to pull it for discussion like you would any other item.
So add the stop-loss in consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there are 3 proposed changes that need to be potentially made, we would need a motion on each or a motion on them collectively to add them to the agenda and modify the agenda?
If you agree to the order on the agenda, I would think collectively would be fine.
I move for approval.
There's a motion from the Vice Mayor and a second from Commissioner Brock. If there's not discussion, Ms. Jennings, will you call the roll? Yes. Now remember, everybody, you've got to turn your microphone on if you're going to talk. So,
That brings us to the approval of the minutes for the meeting held Thursday, May 19th, 2022. This is before you for
are there
consideration.
changes or a motion to accept?
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not discussion, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter, Commissioner Murphy, Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next item is we have the Employee Scholarship Recognition Program that's before you tonight. Michelle will coordinate this.
Okay, thank you. The Employee Scholarship Program is for dependents of city employees, and it is funded entirely by donations from city staff. Since 1994, the John City Employee Scholarship Program has awarded 207 scholarships, totaling $173,060. Tonight, we are going to present 4. One of them cannot be here, Rachel Bartley, daughter of Hetty Bartley in Development Services. We also have Alexandria Cooper, daughter of Shane Malone from the police department. Alexandria will be attending ETSU and studying radiography. Ryan Eggers, son of Wendy Phillips in Fleet Management and Jason Eggers Fire Department, will attend Tennessee Tech University studying biomedical engineering. Maggie Enzer, daughter of Aaron Enzer Juvenile Court, Northeast State Community College to study nursing. And the exception to the scholarship program is the John W. Campbell Scholarship, which was founded by our former city manager in memory of his father. We match that donation from him every year for a student currently enrolled at ETSU or Northeast State. And this year's winner is Melanie James, daughter of Joe James, who the police department is studying criminal justice. So thank you to all the employees who contribute, and congratulations to our winners.
Mayor, we're moving to licenses. First license is consider approval of a temporary occasion license for Pride Community Center of the Tri-Cities. This item is to consider approval of a temporary occasion license as described to serve beer at the Pride Rainbow Festival event to be held on June 25th at the Pavilion at Founders Park. And site plans have been submitted with the application. We've received a report from the legal department, and there's a finding of no disqualifying factors, so this is before you for your review and consideration.
Is the applicant here? If you'll come and give your name and address, please.
Johnson City, Tennessee.
Have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of alcohol in the city?
Yes, sir.
And do you agree to abide by them?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval.
We have
Second.
a motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter? Commissioner Murphy? Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Congratulations. Thank you, sir.
And this item has been added this evening. Item 5.2 is to consider a beer license application for Burger and Barrel at 330 Cherry Street. This item is a Class 1 on-premise beer license for Burger and Barrel as described. This is in a B2 business zone. A report has been received from the legal department. There's finding of no disqualifying factors, and the applicant is here tonight, and this is before you for your review and consideration.
All right. The applicant will come to the podium, give your name and address.
Gary Kalogers, 273 Keefoffer Road.
All right. Have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of alcohol in the
I
city?
have.
And do you agree to abide by them?
I do.
All right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? If-
Well, I kind of got lost in your application because I got hung up on the menu. So we have the menu for all your hamburgers and
There for a reason to
everything,
make you hungry.
everything else that you're going to be serving. So I can't wait. It's just an exciting new development downtown. Thank
you.
y'all
We're
for
excited.
your investment.
Thank you.
So, we ready to call the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter? Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. When do you hope to be open?
I knew that question may be coming. It's if supply chain still holds up for us, maybe next week. It should be by Wednesday or Thursday. Soft opening. So
Okay.
y'all
We-
come down visit.
we
Love to have you help us try make the food even better that first week during the soft opening.
We appreciate your investment in downtown.
Thank you. We're excited.
We'll know you're open when we smell the hamburgers cooking on the street.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time, and I think my grandfather and dad would be very happy with it. It's so close by. We started 1938, right about a block away from there, so it's kind of a cool story.
And I do understand you can get the fearless Greek salad.
That's when we have Grill Sandwich Crowd. We'll be there.
For those who have been missing it.
Yeah, that's exciting.
We have been too. Really, we don't get to eat it ourselves.
I think most of us will be happy to try some things out on your menu,
I
so
appreciate
just
it.
let us
Thank you
know
all
when
for
it's
your
ready.
support, and thank the city for everything that you've all helped us to do. And I just want to recognize one thing. I thought the opening prayer was very special today. I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All righty, we have a street closure request. This is a good development. This is the first time in 2 years that we're bringing back the 35th annual Pepsi Independence Day fireworks celebration. And with that, of course, is a street closure request for the following street closures associated with that event, which will be July 3rd of this year from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Sunday, July 3rd. We are proposing closure of Granda Drive at Liberty Bell Boulevard and all foot traffic at 8:45 p.m. until approximately 10:45 p.m. South Street at Liberty Bell Boulevard and between 8:45 and 10:45 p.m. At the beginning of 4 p.m., closing Tanglewood subdivision from the Dogwood and Hemlock Lane at North Run Street until approximately 10:45 p.m. And on Sunday, July 3rd, 8:45 p.m., closing Liberty Bell Boulevard at Sundale until 10:45 p.m. And we have Washington County Emergency Management, including traffic, police, public works, have reviewed the site plans submitted by Freedom Hall and PepsiCo and find the closures to be safe and appropriate, which not only facilitates crowd and pedestrian movement, but also is the fallout zone for fireworks is being considered in this as well. So Mark Stone from Freedom Hall is here. If you have any questions of him specifically, and this is before you for your consideration.
Mr. Stone, do you have anything to add?
No, not really.
I feel like he stole your thunder. Like there's not really much to say. Okay. So is there a motion?
Move for approval?
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Let's see how this vote is going to be close, whether we're for fireworks or not. Call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. So, thank you, sir.
Next item has been added. This is the solid waste municipal and regional collection rate resolution that is recommended to be considered before the first reading of the budget process. And this has been discussed in the FY23 budget process, which could be highlighted further this evening in a separate budget presentation, but we have proposed rate adjustments for solid waste, including a municipal $2 a month increase for residential collections, taking the base rate from $11 to $13. The regional rate would be a $1 increase per month for residential collections, taking the base rate from $18 to $19. And in addition, adjustments in industrial and commercial rates for the municipal and regional systems are proposed. The last approved rate adjustments were in 2019, and before that in 2018. And this is a staff recommendation in conjunction with and in accordance with the annual budget process for your review and consideration.
Are there questions for Mr. Stahl?
I have just a couple. Mr. Stahl, it also includes, and I think you were talking about the commercial, but the dumpster collections and dumpster rentals and the roll-off collections, those rates are going to increase as well.
Right.
How do we, now I know the residential will be in the paper tomorrow, but how do we communicate with these customers to let them know? And of course, I think everybody understands the cost of gas, the cost of trucks. Those are big trucks that have to do all that. It had just gone up tremendously, and while this is an increase, it's a modest increase to, to keep our department whole. But how are we going to communicate this with all of our customers?
Well, traditionally and most recently, our various departments have worked with our communications and marketing department more directly probably than ever before to have coordinated information that is being communicated consistently and in the best possible manner possible, because there are, as you know, various forms of media communication, and we want to make sure it's effective and consistent. So that's typically what we're doing in this case, and other general information, including such as the fireworks and sort of the plan on that too. We just want to make sure anything we're doing, whether it's rates, whether it's events, is properly communicated and coordinated through communications.
Also, the only other point I wanted to make too, even for the new base rate of $13 a month for residential, that includes yard waste. It includes, if you're throwing away furniture, they will pick that up, or any other kind of things like that, recycling. So even at $13 a month, that's a pretty good deal to be able to get that taken away in a convenient way.
Motion on that item?
I will move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? I would just acknowledge what Commissioner Brock said. I think in certain parts of the city budget, when inflation strikes, sales tax revenues pace accordingly. Something costs a little more, sales tax collects a little bit more. In the case of solid waste, the fee is the fee, and it is a department, it is an enterprise of the city that is particularly susceptible. So when you look at those big trucks, they don't run forever. And once upon a time, you could buy them for $80,000, and now they're $120,000 or something roughly in that neighborhood. And if you've been to the gas station, you know what diesel fuel and gasoline costs are today versus a couple years ago. And so big components of their operating cost are doing like this, and their revenue, but for a fee change, is flat. And so I don't think anybody on this commission comes to any conversation about increases in revenue, be they fees or taxes, lightly, but we also put a high value on delivering and maintaining the delivery of service to our citizens. And this is one of those issues where, but for making this adjustment, our ability to continue providing those services would be impacted. If there's nothing further, Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next item, Mayor, Commissioners, is your consent agenda. And as a reminder, you did add a renewal for the city's insurance stop loss to this consent agenda. The number could be, just for, yeah, how about exactly that, 7.1.9?
Okay. Commissioner Murphy, you get to go first. Do you have anything you would like to see pulled?
No, sir.
All right, Vice Mayor? 7.1.3. All right, we have 2. Commissioner Hunter?
2.2.
7.2.2. Is that all? All right. Commissioner Brock?
7.1.9, the stop loss.
Okay, so Commissioner Brock. And I'm assuming we'll go through them in their actual numeric order. Is that fair? So
It is.
So the first one, the Vice Mayor's asked to pull consider renewal of a contract between the state of Tennessee and the Department of Corrections. I assume that will be the chief?
Chief, yep.
And while the chief approaches the podium and turns on the microphone, or did JT already do that? What questions do you have, Vice Mayor?
More wanting just to spread the information about us having jailed people here and the amount of money that we're receiving from the government to do that. Turning my microphone as they're flashing at me. So I'll say that again. That we have a jail here, that we're taking care of people, plus we're getting paid by the state to do that. And how much, I've read $40 a day plus some extra depending on the different prisoner, how much we're getting per day for each one of those people.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor and Commissioners. We do have a jail at the police department. We can house up to 88 state inmates. Those inmates are all female inmates that are sentenced to the Tennessee Department of Corrections. So basically we are a satellite prison for the Tennessee Department of Corrections. And as Vice Mayor said, we receive $40.75 per day to house the inmates. That's the fee that the city collects per inmate. So the contract, we renewed the contract is up for renewal. A couple of the things that I had discussed with City Manager Ms. Ball was the length of the contract. Those numbers, as far as the numbers of inmates that we have in the jail, will fluctuate depending on the number of incarcerated subjects in the Tennessee Department of Corrections system and the ones that meet our criteria to be housed here at Johnson City as well.
And I saw that it's up to 1.8 million this year and 1.9 million next year.
Yes, sir. Those are our figures that we revenue we could receive, and again, that's based on the occupancy at the jail.
I just thought it was one more thing that y'all are doing here that people don't understand, how much the police department and what all is involved with. It's not just driving around in your cars looking for people doing the wrong things. So
yes, sir. And those it's basically a work camp, so the ladies that are incarcerated here, they do some of the janitorial services here at City Hall and the police department. Also, they do work at other city buildings as well.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Chief?
Chief, on the contract amount was 1.794, almost 1.8 million. Is that the cap? And can we run the jail for that? I mean, are we breaking even, or in addition to that, do we get $40 a day?
The $40 a day is the amount that we receive per inmate. They also, the state covers, as far as medical expenses, we cover the first $1,000, and anything after that, the state picks up the medical expenses. The number, like I said, the number of inmates that we have will fluctuate depending on people who meet our needs, and some of our needs are the medical services that we can provide. Some inmates may have medical conditions that our medical providers can't meet their needs, and also their status in the system. They have to be minimum security inmates as well.
So the grant we get from the state takes care of the program. I mean, it's at least a break even, or?
Yes, ma'am, and again, Ms. Ball and I are looking at that, and the contract is renewed for 2 years, and I think we want to look at what our break-even point is, depending on the number of inmates that are housed in the facility and the benefit to the city, also the benefit to the inmates who are trying to rehabilitate and come back into society. And so The police department certainly has needs as far as property and evidence and other office space, and so I think in a couple of years we will probably reevaluate that program and make sure that it's still benefiting everyone involved.
Are there other questions for Chief while he's here?
One last question. This only applies to female inmates, correct?
Yes, sir. All of our inmates are female inmates with the state.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, the next item pulled is 7.1.3, consider approval of the 2023 lease renewal for the Keystone Community Center. Mr. Trivett.
Hello.
Is there a question specifically?
Part of it, the director of the Keystone Dental, which I'm gonna, of the three things, that's one I was gonna talk about. David Story is an orthodontist who volunteers his time and is leading that Keystone Dental, and they were requesting a 5-year lease, and they have been paying, I think, $1 a year, and this even goes down to $0 a year. But part of what he wanted to let everybody know is from January to April of this year, they saw 1,528 dental patients. They did 4,886 procedures, and these are all on poverty level income, people who can't afford dental prices and don't have insurance. And without that building, they couldn't provide that for our community. And in addition, they're wanting to put in a laboratory to do more dental procedures like dentures, and they've had to send these people out to other people to get dentures, and some of them may not have been as good a quality as they'd hoped for these patients. So they didn't want to spend a lot of money setting up a lab and doing those procedures if they were going to lose the building anytime soon. They didn't want to put that much money into it. So passing this will give them a 5-year lease, paying nothing, and it's doing an unbelievable service to our community people. So just to let everybody know why they were wanting that.
So it sounds like he's for it.
It sounds like he is. I don't even have to say anything. But one of the things I did want to add in that is they had contacted us and told us about the need for the 5-year lease. And even though they've been there for a number of years and it gets renewed every year, just that security of having that 5-year lease with the amount of investment they have put into that space with all the equipment, I could understand it, and so that's why I presented it that way to you all tonight.
Thank you.
All right, I think the next item in order would be Commissioner Brock pulling the stop loss, which I believe, Melanie, is that you? If you'll come on up. The city's recently new Director of Human Resources.
She started the same day as the city manager, I think, if my memory serves, so
That is correct.
2 new employees.
Good evening. My question is just to kind of go through it and what increases we're seeing here and what we're voting on.
Okay. We initially received a stop loss quote from Blue Cross Blue Shield at a 19% increase over last year's stop loss. The city is self-funded, so the stop loss insurance is our reinsurance. Once claims reach a level of $350,000, the stop loss insurance would kick in and allows us to know and control our claims costs. We were successful in asking Blue Cross to sharpen their pencils and was able to reduce that down to 10% increase. I would have liked to have seen that at a flat or at a single-digit increase, but going from 19 to 10% was a pretty significant feat, if I may say so, and I request your approval.
Once a claim gets to, what is the amount now? I'm looking back in here.
$350,000.
Okay, so once a claim for an individual reaches $350,000, then the stop loss reinsurance kicks in.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's the exception to the rule.
Yes, it is. This year there were no claims that hit the aggregate limits. We did have a few large claims, which increases our experience, our payout level with Blue Cross. But that 2 of the claimants that caused that are no longer on the plan, so they did take that into consideration with our renewal.
Are there other questions for staff?
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, I think the last item pulled was for Commissioner Hunter. It's the Preston Construction Company Science Hill School interior renovations, and I don't know who to expect. Is it Mr. Ross? All right. This is no longer a hazing, this is actual business.
So I'd like to hear, Mr. Ross, what the trigger was and what we're doing with this.
Sure.
And then also, I know we've got a special guest that we are honored with, our chair of the school board, Kathy Hall, who I think has actually toured the areas in question. And if she's willing, I'd love to hear her input afterwards as to the thoughts on value engineering on this project. Thank you.
So the bid started with renovation of 10, 12 science classrooms, 16. The bid came in pretty high, as you've seen, and through the value engineering process, they did remove some of the rooms from that scope of work, and those would be the rooms that were in the addition to the school in the 90s. The rooms that remain in the scope of work are the original science labs, and I think some of the rooms that were built for home economics and those types of things. There's a significant amount of asbestos abatement as part of the project, predominantly in the flooring, and as well as some other restroom upgrades and HVAC system upgrades. So some of the value engineering items were, I think they're considered to be some of the non-essential equipment and finishes and those types of things. It's unfortunate we can't do all the science classrooms as part of it, but we are able to fit in the oldest of the rooms.
Are there other questions for Mr. Ross?
Thank you, Mr.
Ms.
Ross.
Hall?
And Ms. Hall, being a longtime school board member and having had children.
You're calling me old,
No.
Just be careful, you're getting close to the edge there.
Right. Having had children in the school system, and I think you took a recent tour. Does the board feel comfortable with removing these pieces? And
So we as a board have not talked about it yet. We'll have that at our Monday meeting. I did tour, and I understand you and I have some of the same concerns. We're taking those classrooms out. Some of the items that are being value engineered, we will pick up from our fund balance. So some of the equipment, there's some restroom renovations that we're in desperate need for. So we'll do some of those, continue to do those, and take some of that out of our fund balance. After touring those rooms, the rooms themselves seem in decent shape. Some of the furnishings are not. And so I think that we might be looking at or discussing, is there a middle ground? Is there some furnishings that we can do that will upgrade those rooms without doing a complete renovation?
see value engineering, I get nervous
I'm
that
with you, John.
we're actually just deferring maintenance to a more costlier time as we experience inflation and whatnot. So.
The good part about this project, from what I hear, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is once this is done, we are done with asbestos abatement at Science Hill. And so, we're paying it forward to anyone that needs to do anything in the future. So that will be done. Again, these rooms themselves did not seem in bad shape, but there really are some furnishings that need to be improved upon.
Thank you, Ms. Hall.
Talk to the microphone.
Wasn't going to be that quick. But we did add the old administration wing to the asbestos abatement, and that's part of this contract as well. And so the newer rooms that we're leaving off of this do not contain any asbestos. We had environmental specialists go up and evaluate those rooms. So that's why it was so easy to kind of cut that break, because these rooms are not that old or original to the school like the other rooms that we're doing. And we're doing, part of this renovation is going to be creating a large CDC suite, which Science Hill does not currently have. It's very small. It's not appropriate for what they're doing up there, and this is going to create a huge CDC suite.
And what does that mean?
What you're going to ask what that is?
Yeah. I mean, I know I look smart, but I have no idea what we're talking about. Okay, thank you.
And Randy's right. This gives a much better space for that, and turns some of the rooms they were using at the science lab. So that's all very good.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And most of the VE stuff that you saw that were line item, it's like changing the type of ceiling tile. So it's not really going to change the scope of the work. It's just getting a lower price ceiling tile, changing some lighting. The furnishings, we were keeping designed this, we designed it as the Cadillac style. So once the bids came in, because of post-COVID, basically we're seeing that across the city, that we had to start taking out some of the high-end features and just put normal in. But it'll still be a brand new school. The design is beautiful. It's going to take in the 4 doors. We're moving doors, making everything more handicap accessible, some things that weren't ADA compliant at the time, redoing some of the plumbing that goes in, and then actually redoing 2 sets of bathrooms to make them single user stalls and upgrading those who have been neglected since the school was built. I don't want to say neglected, but just aged. Their time is due.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think that represents everything that was asked to be pulled. If there's nothing further, is there a motion for action on the consent agenda?
Make a motion for approval.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not further discussion, we'll call the roll if our microphones are on. Just remind everybody, turn them on.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Brings us to ordinances on first reading. We have ordinance number 4811-22, which is to consider assigning the R4 medium density residential zoning district to approximately 7.2 acre territory located along Lone Oak Road, which is proposed for annexation. And we have Peyton here to kind of go into that if you have any questions.
I love this slide. It's one of my favorites.
Thank you. I'm very proud of it. Good evening, Commissioners. We are going to start with everybody's favorite slide. Just to remind you where you are in this annexation timeline. You have approved the request to proceed, and it did go to Planning Commission at their May meeting where they made a recommendation on the plan of services and zoning assignment. You guys approved the preliminary resolution that calls for the public hearing on July 7th on the consent agenda, and this is going to be discussing the zoning assignment. So this is the first reading of the ordinance associated with that zoning assignment. Now again, just to remind you guys, this is the territory. It is 7.2 acres. It is just north of Cherokee Elementary along Lone Oak Road. And the annexation and the plan of services is kind of one chunk that went around with the preliminary resolution. And what we're talking about here is going to be that zoning assignment of R4. Now, they are planning to do townhomes, and as we've discussed with annexations, there's no concept plan, there's no binding plan. So I just wanted to let you guys know that in the R4, they can go up to 14 dwelling units an acre. If you were to assume a full build out of that, that would look like about 100 units. And again, no concept plan is required, and anything that they did provide would be non-binding. It is currently zoned A1, however, it is adjacent to existing R4 within the city. It is also across the street from existing low-density residential zoned R2, and the future land use map does propose the site go residential as well. Staff recommends approval, and Planning Commission also recommended approval, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Are there questions for staff? Yep.
This property abuts Cherokee School, so they will share the property line
Correct, yes ma'am.
in the back.
Yes ma'am. Well,
All right, are there other questions for staff? Again, this is on first reading, so there'll be public hearing at the next regular commission meeting. Is there a motion?
this will actually not be public hearing at the next regular commission meeting. For annexations, and I'm going to go back
Okay,
to.
we need to go back to that.
I'm going to go back to my slide. For
Not
annexation.
public hearing, that's right.
We've actually changed the public hearing to third reading so that the final resolution public hearing and the zoning assignment.
So you can come for public hearing and then go see fireworks.
Exactly. So
Okay.
you don't have to.
All right.
So if you want to speak on this item, you don't have to come twice in a row. You
Okay.
just have to come that third and final night.
Thank you.
So there is still public hearing. It's just third reading.
Move for approval. We have a motion for approval and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Which brings us to item 8.2 under ordinances. This is first reading of an ordinance 4812-22, first reading and public hearing, which is required by charter for first reading of a budget ordinance, which an ordinance to establish the property tax rates, appropriate funds, and adopt a budget for the fiscal year July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. And this is before you for first reading and public hearing, and we do have a presentation on the annual budget by Assistant City Manager Randy Trivett.
Hello, Commissioners. This is a big time of the year for the city when we're adopting our budget and establishing our revenues and our expenditures. So we wanted to give you all maybe a 60,000-foot view of that. I know you've been through work sessions and you've been through the detailed development of the budget, but this is a good opportunity for us to kind of cover it as a whole. So to start off with the fiscal year 2023 budget, all of our funds put together, including schools and our enterprise funds, the total is $333,032,558. It is a balanced budget. That's what's being presented to you by the city manager. That with no tax increase, we're not recommending a tax increase at all for this budget. Everything's being paid for through growth in the city and the funds that are currently being brought in. So to talk about our budget considerations a little bit, we've noticed in past historic trends that revenues have trended upwards with sales tax and property tax. Even through the couple of years with the COVID pandemic, we've noticed sales tax continue to increase. We've noticed a lot of development and increases in our property tax revenue, not based on raising those property taxes, but based on just growth in the city. But inflationary trends and the economic uncertainty that we're all dealing with right now has caused us to be very conservative in our revenue estimates. As we're going through this budget, we wanted to make sure that we could hit those targets and hit those budget recommendations that we're presenting to you. We do have a healthy fund balance. We've been very, very blessed to have a growth in our fund balance with our rainy day fund and then our non-assigned fund balance. Our expenditures reflect investments in the community. So that's based on our budget telling a story of what we hope to accomplish with what we're presenting to you if you approve it, with the investments in our community through capital projects, through our quality services. And these align with your all strategic plan that you have adopted. Retention and recruitment, and you're going to hear that word a lot, you're going to hear that phrase a lot, because that continues to be the highest priority for the city. Our greatest assets are our employees who perform these services every day, who are interacting with our citizens every day and doing the things that we task them to do, and they're doing a tremendous job at it. But trying to maintain and recruit those employees is a big concern. So fiscal year 23 general fund, so taking away the schools and the enterprise funds, the general fund budget is about $101,718,000. And you can see how that's broken up with the two largest revenue sources for the general fund being property tax and local option sales tax. Property tax being about 35%, local option sales tax being around 27%. The investment priorities, that what we're looking for as we expend money throughout this next budget cycle, is employee retention and recruitment. Told you hear that word a lot. Growth management and quality service provision. So employee retention and recruitment. So right off the bat tonight, the staff is going to recommend to you for an amendment to the budget that was presented earlier, an adjustment in the COLA from 5% to 7.5% based on an April 2022 CPI of 7.8. Now, the reason we're asking this, and the reason we're going to move forward, or asking you all to consider this is a data-driven request. We've researched all of the surrounding cities. We've researched the problems that we're having with retention and recruitment. We found out that in fiscal year 2022, we had 935 budgeted full-time positions. And then as of April of this fiscal year, we've had 99 people who've left the employment of the city. And that's about 11.35% turnover rate. And that's a little high. We'd love to be in the single digits. And I've got another slide that'll talk about that a little bit, but I wanted to stress that of why we're asking you guys tonight to consider that. Other things that we're considering, this is just one tool in our toolbox with the recommendation of the COLA. The other items that we're looking at is the Christmas bonus tenure adjustment that's in the budget, the CDL driver adjustment, bereavement leave, pay and class study. The pay and class study we're planning on doing as a mid-year, and we're going to do that internally and evaluate all of our positions and compare them to not only other cities our size, but also to private sector, because that's where we're losing some employees to. And we're going to evaluate reentering TCRS with the potential implementation July the 1st of 2023. At your next regular meeting, you will probably be presented with a resolution to consider about us starting a study to get back into the hybrid TCRS. We're also proposing 7 new positions: economic development position, grants coordinator, HR coordinator for CDL training and CDL record keeping, assistant chiefs for 2 in the fire department, trades inspector, and planning technician. Most of those things are related to growth. Most of those positions are related to the city growing. We want to manage that growth, and we want to plan for that growth. So the retention and recruitment for the 7.5% COLA that we're requesting, in the East-South Central Division, right now the CPI is 7.8%. And as I said earlier, we've had 99 employees leave as of April in this current year that we're in. And March was the highest turnover with 17 people leaving. So as I said, that's an 11.4% turnover rate. And most of the employees who have left average tenure was 7 years. So we've got to figure out a way to keep those employees. Once you have someone here 7 years, they're already trained, they're experienced, they understand the operations of the city. When we bring somebody in new to fill those positions, there's a lot of money invested into retraining new employees and getting them up to par on where we need to be. And the biggest reason for employees leaving was money.
Public, would you just define COLA and CPI in case people don't know what those stand for?
And CDL.
Yeah.
And CDL.
Just so everybody knows what we're talking about.
Well, CDL is a commercial driver's license.
So that's the school bus driver.
That's the school bus and the solid waste truck drivers and the larger dump truck drivers. So it impacts all of our departments, whether it's water, sewer, solid waste.
When parents are getting a text that their kid's bus isn't running today, it is very likely because we do not have as many drivers as we have buses.
That is correct.
And the CDL is the component of that. Just so everybody understands how this affects you in your life.
That's correct.
And who's our competition for CDL drivers?
It's mostly larger construction companies in our area. They're advertising and paying a lot more money, and people are leaving because they have that CDL license to go work to make probably $5 or $7 more an hour. That's why that's a critical need for us to address and take a look at. And then Consumer Price Index is CPI. Am I doing something wrong?
I'm getting signals that you need to speak more into the microphone. You may be just towering over the microphone, and so they're having trouble hearing you.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So CPI stands for Consumer Price Index, and that's based on across the country, and there's certain divisions. And so we picked the Southern Division because it's more expensive if you go across the nation, or if you would go into the West Coast or the East Coast. That index is a lot higher than that. And then COLA stands for Cost of Living Adjustment. Okay?
CPI, how much the cost of goods and services has increased.
Basically, it's inflation.
Yeah.
And then part of the budget is for growth management. And growth management is going to include transportation and parking study. We feel that's important for our growth to be able to handle that. And then we'll also have a growth management study, which will help us do a planned analysis of how we grow, how the city develops in infill sites and in outfill sites that people are requesting annexation. So we're going to consider all of that in our growth management study. And then also those additional positions that I went over with you, those are partly because of growth, because there's more work coming in than we've got staff to be able to handle in a timely fashion. The quality service provision that we're looking at is going to include capital equipment, capital projects, police cameras, increased resurfacing, we've added money in for that, and then the additional positions as well. Inflation and other drivers to the budget, these are considerations that we took when we were compiling the budget to present to you all, but health insurance adjustment, health insurance costs are going up across the country, and we're not immune to that. You heard some of that tonight when Melanie talked about the increase of our stop loss. Also, our costs are going up with prescription drugs and all those things, so all that is included into this budget and a concern for us. Fuel costs increase are just they're just skyrocketing, and we use a lot of fuel here at the city with the amount of vehicles that we have and the amount of services that we provide. IT costs, the software, security is a big component of that. Increase in debt service, where we just borrowed the money for some of those capital projects, and then the COLA for the employees. So those are the drivers for this budget. So the general fund operating expenses, so this is currently as presented to you before we do an amendment. And so you can see how the departments are divided up in this pie chart for expenditures, with fire being about 16 or 17%, police being at 22%, public works is about 20, and then it kind of drifts down a little bit after that. Now this is just general fund, so that's the expenditure report, and it's about $76,388,000. Also, the transfers out get added to that expenditure report to balance out our budget. You can see schools gets transferred out about 41%, debt service is about 38%. Capital, those cash buys or those cash payments that we do to purchase equipment or to fund capital projects by cash, that's about 15 or 16%. So to go over some of the capital that we do, and these are, when it says pay-go, that means we pay cash for those out of those capital funds, either the general fund balance fund budget, or we pay them out of the enterprise's revenue sources. So communication, this is pay-go for capital equipment, communications and marketing, development services. You can see the list, facilities. Most of this is equipment. Most of these are cars or trucks. IT would be some software improvements, some upgrades to some of our software, park and rec, and police. And now police is the highest one on there, and so you may look at that, but that's a number of cars. We have at our budget hearing, when we talked to police, they said they had like 40 some cars that were reaching the end of life, and they were only requesting 17 as replacements. And so we need to make sure we continue on a cycle of replacing those cars to keep them safe and keep them on the road. But also that includes cameras in the car and also body cameras. Public Works has $850,000. That's trucks and equipment, heavy equipment for Public Works, for Freedom Hall. Capital projects, and this is from general fund capital projects here, and this would be putting a new roof on City Hall. Our roof here looks like a piecemeal quilt or something, with it's been patched so many times. The HVAC controls, these are about 30 years old, and so we're going to upgrade those to a more modern system so we can control the HVAC, which will be more energy efficient and will pay for itself over a period of time. Commission chambers renovation, and that's driven more by security than anything else. And then Kiwanis Park, Freedom Hall, bank stabilization, and then playgrounds, various playgrounds throughout the park and rec. Capital with other funding sources. So this is where we've either borrowed money or using ARPA funds. So ARPA funding, we've got $13,415,000, and we've assigned those to much needed needs, with the most of it being public safety with fire department, police department. Bond proceeds of $39 million. Those are for various projects, but with the bulk of that probably being Walnut Street and Wing Deer Park. Other funding is the STBG, which is a Public Works. Please don't ask me what STBG. I'd have to turn around and get Phil to tell me what. That's Surface Transportation. You don't know either?
So just for clarification on the ARPA funding toward public safety, the bulk of that money was going to various training facilities, correct? I believe a large part of that fire and police investment is to provide improved or expanded training.
Correct. There'd be a new fire training facility, upgrades to the police training facility, and then the consideration of upgrades to all the fire stations to make them more accessible and more appropriate for where their location's at after a study has been completed. Thank you.
Did that also include Knob Creek Road and West Mountain View Road improvements?
It did. It included some of those road improvements.
Right.
So key takeaways from what we're presenting to you and asking you to consider is healthy revenue growth and a fund balance. So we're blessed to have that. That's been by good management from you all and from the staff, people managing their department budgets has created a good fund balance for us. And we also have, because the city's growing, we have a healthy revenue growth. We did conservative projections based on the economic uncertainty as I described. Our investment priorities are retain and recruit, growth management, quality service provisions. Priorities align with the strategic goals in the citizen surveys that we listen when people reply to those surveys. So the recommended amendment that we're asking you to tonight is an additional 2.5% COLA, which would cost $1,261,000. And then we've broken it down by fund, and you can see out from each department and each fund what that cost will entail. But that's across the city-wide with all departments. And so now looking at expenditure side, I showed you this pie chart a little earlier as it was presented, and that would have been with the 5% COLA. This is with the additional 2.5% COLA. And you can see the expenditure side is $77,276,000. So it's about 1.2. Well, on the general fund side, it's only about a little over 800,000. So the rest of the 1.2 comes from enterprise funds. And so to wrap it up, as amended, all funds together would be $334,293,700. It is a balanced budget. And there is no tax increase. No tax increase.
So to review,
any questions?
No tax increase.
No tax increase.
Could you go back to the last pie chart? That's
yep.
All right. I'm going to be nice. That does not include the transfers to other departments like the school system transfer. It doesn't include that.
That does not. The pie chart I showed you earlier is the transfers to other departments
Okay.
that add to that. Do you want me to go back to that
No,
one?
no, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that didn't, because I didn't see schools on there.
No, it was in the earlier one.
Okay.
And that doesn't change. So the reason I'm showing this one at the end is this is the additional 2.5% COLA, and that doesn't impact the transfers.
Okay.
but it was colorful just the same.
Yeah.
So there's really two different items that need action. Then the approval, well, actually there needs to be a public hearing as well, but do we do the public hearing before or after we amend the budget we're hearing from the public about?
I would have a motion made to amend the budget as presented on first reading and then open for public hearing.
Okay, so is there a motion to make that amendment? Vice Mayor made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Is there further discussion? Are we ready for a vote? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. So with that, this is first reading. We'll open the floor to public comment on first reading on the fiscal year budget for July 1 through June 30 of 2023. It's hard to believe this is for 2023. Anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposed, please approach the podium. Again, one at a time. Don't all rush at once. We'll close the public hearing and now turn to the commission for action on the amended budget on first reading.
Move for approval.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Close enough, Dustin? All right, we're close enough. Okay. Mr. Stahl, I guess we're on ordinances at third reading.
Yes, sir. We have ordinance number 4807-22 on third reading, an ordinance authorizing the advance to Eastern 8 Community Development Corporation a certain parcel of real property owned by the City of Johnson City and located in the 9th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee. And this is on 221 East Myrtle Avenue, and it would be stipulated as transferred in an as-is condition, and the transfer of the City of Johnson City's remaining rights for interest shall be without cost to Eastern Aid, a local nonprofit corporation that provides a service that yields year-round benefits for the general welfare of the residents of Johnson City. Eastern Aid has a desire to acquire the property for public purposes pursuant to Tennessee Code 12-9-110, and the construction of a rental home that will aid the city's efforts in the revitalization of the Langston community area, and while providing affordable rental housing for those who qualify. So this is before you this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, thanks.
I reimbursed him his $1 for the cost.
Yes, I got $1 from Mr. Stahl.
Okay.
I appreciate the explanation that Mr. Stahl just gave, because the only thing I'd like to add is I had mentioned during second reading there had been some conversation with Sherry Trent, the executive director of Eastern 8, and their desire to possibly bring one of the new Auburn University rural studio homes to this site. Realized that this is a crazy last couple of days. We had the holidays, so it was hard to get everybody together. And so asked Sherry if the folks from Auburn Rural Studios had an interest in coming here and presenting to you at your next, or one of the next regular meetings. And so excited to say that they are willing and would like to drive up for the June 16th meeting, and would like to be on the agenda to give you a formal presentation about what they're doing, what they wish to do more so in town, and they really have an interest. They really had a ball working with ASP and with Eastern Aid on the East Unaka home, and would really like to do more in our community, and that's exciting. And so I'm excited to say that they want to come talk to you about it at the next meeting.
But at this point, we're considering on third reading this particular conveyance.
Right.
And we have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. If there's not further discussion, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yeah, I will say one thing. I ran into Mr. Parks yesterday just accidentally, and he showed me some of the pictures of the homes from the university that they can build in up here, and they're really quite beautiful. I mean, they really are, and it would be great kind of affordable housing that if we could, have some kind of work relationship with them. I think it'd be exactly what we're looking for. So I look forward to them coming up here.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
This brings us to ordinance number 9.2, ordinance number 4808-22 on third reading, an ordinance to rezone approximately 16 acres located along Dalton Drive from R2 Low Density Residential District to R2C Low Density Residential District, and the petitioner requests to rezone property from R2 to R2C to allow for a 55 lot subdivision. This has been recommended by staff and the Planning Commission for your review and consideration.
Good evening, Commission. This is third reading, and there have been no changes. I'm here for any questions.
All right. Are there any questions or a motion to take action on third reading?
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second to approve. If there's not further discussion, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy? Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
This brings us to ordinance number 4809-22 on third reading, an ordinance to amend Title 8, Chapters 1, 2, and 3 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee. And this ordinance is to revise the code and to define the beer board as a legislative authority to regulate and supervise the issuance of a beer license, to require applicants' appearance during consideration of beer license applications, to allow a temporary business beer license, to designate all nonprofit organizations qualified to apply for a temporary occasion beer license, and to allow dispensing equipment by amending Title 8, Chapters 1, 2, and 3 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee. This has been reviewed and prepared by the legal department. Staff has reviewed the ordinance and recommends commission consideration.
Do you need to stop for a breath?
Yes,
I
do.
just feel winded listening to that. Counselor, has there been any change since second reading?
No, Mayor.
All right. Are there questions for Ms. Sandos before action on third reading? Is there a motion to take action on third reading? We have a motion and a second to approve on third reading. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Thank you.
And this brings us to other on our agenda, and the first item under other is consider termination of a lease agreement with Greyhound Lines Incorporated. This has been recommended by the Transit Department, and just to give you some background, that you all approved a lease, a 2-year lease extension for Greyhound at the Johnson City Transit Center. This lease, or versions of the lease, have been in place for over 35 years, using 944 square feet within our Johnson City Transit Center. Consistent with prior leases, much did not change in the lease. There was an increase, a small increase in the rental fee or lease fee, but unknown to us, apparently the Greyhound Corporation had plans to change its business plan, and they informed us of this plan in April, which effectively meant that this new business model, it eliminated its on-site office personnel at the Johnson City Transit Center. And you say, why is this important? Well, the result of this change, in our judgment, that since there is no longer any Greyhound staff on site to open the transit lobby to serve its bus passengers, arriving and departing after hours or on weekends, to provide whatever janitorial service they were providing to support that presence there, and no longer was their on-site presence that we determined important for the overall area of basically watching out for the patrons that are coming in there after hours. They do have bus service that does come in a couple times on a given basis, and some of that is at 2 a.m. in the morning. So we felt that the on-site presence or the absence thereof was extremely important, and so we basically grew to expect this over the 35-year plus lease we had with them, and without that happening, and again, this on-site presence was terminated effective May 1st, so we were given essentially 2 weeks' notice. We recommend that we needed to terminate the existing lease agreement. While they can terminate the lease with 30 days notice, so our as a lessor, we gave them up to 6 months notice. So this lease, if you do terminate this lease, it will give them 6 months notice to vacate the premises there. But again, it's only being served at this point as a drop-off point for customers or a collection point for customers, but there is no after-hour access into the building that there used to be with an on-site attendant.
Are there questions for Mr. Stahl?
We have to give them 6 months notice since they're already not there.
The city attorney looked at that at our request, and the answer is yes, we do, and that's why we're presenting this accordingly.
Is there a motion for action?
And I was just going to verify that, this change in their their business operation would be considered a default of some sort in the lease agreement.
Well, I won't, no, I don't believe the term default is appropriate to use. I think the biggest, if you read the contents of the lease, it talked about the use of the interior area of the building. It mentioned that their plan in the past would actually had parcels and deliveries there at the transit center. Those were being eliminated. So certainly their use changed. I don't want to define it as
Sure.
default.
Gotcha.
And because their use changed, we determined that again, the main issue, the lack of an on-site presence when you had positive customers, collection of customers without access into the building, without an on-site manager to monitor, arrivals and departures. We felt that was a very important issue to us, and again, particularly since we weren't notified in advance of before the lease was negotiated. We found this out only after you all approved it in February, and they gave us 2 weeks' notice to change the plan and terminated the relationship with on-site managers, and we felt we needed to move forward and terminate our lease accordingly.
Thank you.
Will they continue making their lease payments for 6 months?
That's our expectation.
Okay. What if they wanted to go ahead and end it in 2 weeks?
I think they could give us 30 days' notice. Is that right, Ms. Sanders?
They have the ability to cease the relationship with a 30-day notice. So in the event that they wanted to vacate the premises before that 180 days expired, they would have that ability and option.
Okay, because they may not want to pay 6 months if they're not even. Do we know where the transfer point's going to be now? How are they going to keep coming into town and picking up new passengers?
We don't know. I mean, apparently they've adopted this model in other areas, not just Johnson City, and it's our understanding they would negotiate with another business potential and or institution and try to have another point where they can continue their business activities under this new model.
Is there a motion to take action?
I'll make a motion to approve as somebody who works downtown. There's been noticeable difference in how that operates, and it's caused havoc not just for downtown residents and business people, but also the people that Greyhound services.
So there's a motion to approve termination of the lease.
I'll second.
And a second. Is there further deliberation? If not, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next item is also a transit topic. There's a recommendation from the transit staff to fixed route portion of the transit system. Basically a twofold recommendation, not only to encourage ridership, which is always of interest to the transit, also during these inflationary times with high fuel prices, without any relief in sight, it seems, for those high fuel prices, that we can offer transportation assistance during this time, inflationary costs. So we recommend that free ridership for its fixed route service be approved during the month of June. And there's a attached memorandum from the transit director. You can see, just to be fully apparent here, that there is obviously, anytime you offer something for free, there's some dividends in what you're trying to accomplish, and that's service to the citizens. But there would be approximately a $12,000 per month revenue loss for the fixed route service during this period. But staff.
Can you explain the job access? We have,
Yes.
the fixed rate, the paratransit, and then job access.
Yeah, it's again, it's a direct service. This is not on the fixed route. The fixed route, obviously, there's different routes in the city, and pick you up at a certain location of a bus stop. This job access, you could call Johnson City Transit for direct transportation to your place of employment for the stated fee, $2.50 one way. There may be other individuals on that same trip, but it will go to specific businesses that have been requested, and will provide direct service without having to go through the multiple stops on the fixed route service. So there is a little advantage in time for the individual trying to get to their respective job, and obviously additional fee. So I mean, it's a fairly nominal fee. If you can do a round trip for $5, that's a pretty good bargain. I think even in these inflationary times.
Now, is that fee going to be waived also?
No, and I'll tell you why. We did talk about that right at this point in time. We wanted to implement this fixed route service. One concern we have on paratransit and job access is, frankly, if we had a swell in demand for ridership, which in a perfect world would be great, we're having an interesting driver shortage right now on the CDLs that Melanie out here has been very actively involved in studying and making some recommendations on. So we very likely could be influenced to do that in a different time, but we felt it may not be prudent to do so now.
If someone has never ridden the transit system and they want to get more information to see if they could even get to work riding transit, where would they go get that information?
Well, they certainly could go to the city's website. I think that's there are some direct lines that they can call for Johnson City Transit, but the city's website, www.johnsoncitytn.org, would be the fastest suggestion right now. But obviously, or call the general number for Johnson City Transit as well, and they could be referred to the job access folks there.
Manager, you and Ms. Janatola at Transit, y'all responded to this and have come back, I think, with the services to the benefit of our citizens during this really tough time.
I will say, if we could come back with additional recommendations, even looking into these areas that you've just inquired about, if we could do so with the confidence of delivering the service, we certainly have no hesitation in doing so.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to take action?
So moved.
We have a motion to
Second.
approve and a second. If there's not further discussion, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
That brings us to item 10.3. We have consider approval of request from the Johnson City Development Authority, Jcda, for emergency financial assistance for modernization of elevators at the John Sevier Center. This item is before you from Mr. Randy Trivet.
Yes, there's been a request made from Jcda, JT Cohen, from Jcda to help them, assist them in getting the elevators at the John Sevier building upgraded and modernized, which includes upgrading the controller system and the electronics part of it. The box of the elevator and the shaft and all that will stay the same. But the reason for this request and the reason for this need, it's very important, is because after so many years, after 20, 25 years, those parts are very hard to find. Those parts are almost impossible to get. And then you have a difficult time finding somebody who will even be willing to work on those outdated modernization or electronic controller parts. And so that's why we're needing this now. And then also on June the 14th, the REHAC HUD inspection is being scheduled to be done at the John Sevier building. And without this contract in place, or without these elevators working properly the way they're supposed to be, there's been tons of money dumped into them over the past few years anyway, just to keep them band-aided and keep them operating. But without this upgrade, they'd lose valuable points on that REHAC inspection, which could potentially harm the transfer of the HAP contract. And we do have Alvin Nance with LHP here, and we've got Tish Oldham with Jcda here as well.
Mayor?
You've sat through a meeting, you just well come on up.
Andy has been, I'm
Tish Oldham. I'm the Executive Director for Johnson City Development Authority and Connect Downtown Johnson City. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. And Mr. Brinkman and Mr. Nance surprised me this evening by coming all the way from Nashville and Knoxville to show their support for this. And so they have worked very hard with me over the past few weeks. I appreciate the time that you all have given us, and I really appreciate the fact that you're willing to consider this. We are approaching almost 100 years of the John Sevier, and I have quite a few things as far as the equipment and features that will be upgraded. It is a tremendous improvement. We are going from manual devices to microchips. That's pretty much the simplest way to tell you. It is going to be where someone has an infrared device instead of having to hit the door when they're coming in and realize that some of the residents are on walkers or in wheelchairs. And so there would be that infrared sensor instead of having something that they would get hit by that in getting them out of the elevator. So they would maintain the doors. The existing car would be there, but all of the other pieces, the motors, the mechanisms, the rollers, and then the ropes in there also would be upgraded. So it would be a substantial improvement over our current situation, something I think you all would be very proud to ride in as you would go to the 11th floor or the 10th. And of course, one elevator has to be in operation in order for the other one to be fixed. And right now, the 11th is, we're still waiting for parts, still waiting for programming assistance. We're a little bit stuck right now. Hoping this will move some things ahead. And then once this goes into effect, if you guys decide to approve this, then it is an estimated 5 to 6 weeks as far as the turnaround per elevator, which I thought was incredibly fast considering what I expected. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
How will the inspections in 2 weeks? So just having it approved and the work being done, then we won't lose points or anything because of it?
Correct, and I certainly can defer to Mr. Brinkman and can talk about that, but having this signed would make the difference because it shows that we have made that commitment to moving forward and making those improvements.
So right now, we only have one elevator operative.
Yes, ma'am, and in the entire time I've been with Jcda since February, that 11th story elevator has been under repair. We have waited for parts, we have waited for labor, we have had people drive from Atlanta, we have had various things that have occurred, and we are, if I remember correctly, Andy, we're still waiting for parts on the 11th story elevator.
Yes, a couple questions. One, does this include a new annual contract for maintenance, or would that be separate?
That actually is a question I also had because in this contract it says, in existing contracts, I think we're going to have to look at that because we do not have an existing contract with this company. There was one that was with M&M that had been with Cognier, and so I may be saying that incorrectly, but that was the company of record, but this is a different company, and so we would have to examine that. Okay. But this is the company that has responded and put this together and worked to make sure that we could move forward in a favorable fashion because at this point, everything in the world is moving more slowly, but especially elevators.
And, you know, obviously the ability for it to function properly is a safety feature, but, you know, I'm concerned for the safety of the residents. I know we've had in the past issues with people coming in and out of the building. Are there any security features with the elevators to ensure that, I mean, I don't know if there's like a card pass to get you to allow you to go to a certain floor or not, and that I was curious.
And Andy, that, as far as I know, that is not something that is included, but one of the things we talked about was the potential for an upgrade should that come. But at this point, as far as my understanding is that is not what is included in this proposal. That would be an additional expense. So we did put in contingency funds in this, so that gave us a little bit of room, but you all.
So if the gentleman from LHP want to add anything to the conversation, if you'll step to the podium, and I'll go ahead and tell you, talk into the microphone or JT gets very testy.
Currently, this does not have a security feature. It could be added with the upgraded equipment. It's impossible to put on the current equipment. So in the future, we added that to the front doors and the back door to restrict access. But it could be added in the future, but not in the current proposal.
Okay, thanks. And I know y'all have done a lot to help with that constraint of unapproved people coming in and out of the building, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate all the support.
Yeah,
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions for LHP or JCDA or a motion to take action?
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve.
I will second.
And a second on the motion. There's not further discussion. We can call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank y'all.
Get that passing react.
Yep, thank you.
Invite us over for the first ride.
Maybe the second ride.
That's okay. We'll send Joe up on the first.
Yeah, I like that. I like that an elevator safely operates as a safety feature. Like, that's optional. So,
This brings us to item 10.4 under other annexation, request to proceed. We have a consideration of a request to proceed with the annexation of approximately 10.2 acres located at the termination of Ridgetop Drive. They have requested annexation of the item just described. For TCA, this petition must begin with a request to proceed from the City Commission. This initial consideration determines if the City Commission will allow further investigation of the potential annexation of territory and its proposed plan of services. The proposed plan of services is attached in this packet, and we have Payton here to explain further.
now,
the
do you
details.
have that slide? There it
Just for you,
is.
Mayor.
There it is. All right.
So if
Okay.
you all will notice, the star has actually moved backwards. So for this annexation, we are starting with our request to proceed. So what that does is that gives us permission as staff to go ahead and take this item to the Planning Commission, where it will break out to the plan of services and the zoning assignment. And then from there on, you guys will hear just like you did tonight, and then, for the other readings. So the request in front of you is for a 10.2 acre tract. It's located at the termination of Ridgetop Drive, over behind Garland Farms. Now, again, as a reminder, the annexation corresponds with the plan of services. And then the zoning assignment, not yet, but the zoning assignment will break out into its own separate. And the zoning assignment that is being sought for this is A1. And there are plans to do just a single family home on this tract of land. And again, the plan of services includes all of these. The departments have reviewed the plan of services. I have attached that plan of services in your packet. This is a vicinity map, and staff recommends approval of the request to proceed. And again, this sends this item to the Planning Commission to come back to you guys for recommendation.
Further questions for staff?
On that map, or not on the map, but on the chart, for the star to be bounce around so that we kind of guess where it's going, like Plinko or whatnot. If there's no comments, I'll make a motion.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Is it an extension of Garland Farms, or did you say just a single home's going to be built there?
To be a single family.
Okay.
Originally, they had come to us with the request of going, I believe Garland Farms is R. But they had come in with the same zoning request of Garland Farms, and there was some concern about how to service that area if for some reason it did continue with the subdivision. And so that's why they've kind of gone to the A1 zoning district. Only a single family home can go up there. So no, ma'am, the subdivision will not be continued. It's for a single family home.
Will access to the property be Ridgetop?
Correct, yes,
So
sir.
is that stubbed out, or is there a roundabout?
It's stubbed out right now, and there's currently a plat in the system to do a.
Okay. I'll make
So
a
there's a
motion.
motion to approve proceeding. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll on the request to proceed.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
This brings us to item 10.5 on the agenda under other annexation and request to proceed. It's consideration of a request to proceed with the annexation of approximately 29.23 acres located at 149 Botox Road with an adjacent unnumbered parcel. So that is before you, and we have Payton again to explain in detail the request.
We're ready.
Is it there?
We're back.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
So this annexation is going to follow a very similar timeline to the one I just presented. They just happen to come in right around the same time, so they're going to kind of follow the process along together unless they get held up for some reason. So again, we're at the request to proceed. After this, we'll break out to the Planning Commission, and it'll come back to you all. Now this request is for 29.23 acres located at Boat Dock Road. So you can see this is the Boat Dock Road, and this is that unnumbered parcel. And again, a reminder, the annexation corresponds with the plan of services. Now the applicant is seeking a zoning assignment of B4 and RP3. So you're looking at commercial zoning over on this bit that's off Boat Dock Road, this section right here. And then you're looking at residential zoning for this piece back here. And we'll get a little bit more into the conversation regarding zoning if the zoning assignment comes up and, we go through the 3 readings. Now, I would like to remind you all that this is non-binding. There is no concept plan that is binding for annexations. However, this is just a snippet of some things that the applicant have shared with us as to what they're hoping to do. So you see they are looking to do potentially townhomes over on the residentially zoned site. And they're hoping to do a dry boat storage and a marina and potentially some houseboats over on the commercially zoned portion of it. But again, I would just like to remind you guys, this is non-binding in any way, and it's going to come with all of the rights of the zoning if it gets annexed. But this is what the applicant has provided. Now the plan of services includes all of the departments that you guys have seen. For this annexation, we actually also included a breakdown and a financial impact analysis. That is in your packet. It's in front of you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can regarding that impact analysis. I didn't want to break that down too much in the presentation with all the details because it was a lot of numbers. But I am happy to answer any questions.
So are there questions for staff on this request to proceed? Or a motion? We have a motion and a second on approving the request to proceed. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
And as we move the resolution on solid waste further up in the agenda already, that concludes the agenda.
All right. Do commissioners have anything they wish to report? I'll start with Commissioner Hunter. All right. Commissioner Brock?
I will say last night we had the downtown mile on Main Street. They had a kids race, and and the boys and girls mixed everything. I'm happy to report a girl won overall. So it was a really fun thing to watch the kids run. So a lot of good things happening downtown last night.
Commissioner Murphy?
I don't have anything to report at this moment.
All right. Vice Mayor?
Nothing for me.
All right. Well, I have nothing as well, so this meeting stands adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not adjourned yet. Blue Plum this weekend, Ferris wheel, big time. Be there. Now we're adjourned.